Good morning and welcome to The Angry Astronaut. Today I will be interviewing Mel Quinn from Spaceport Cornwall. She is the director of this first certified spaceport in the United Kingdom. Looking forward to this interview, and as many of you know, I'm hoping to carry out these kinds of interviews in person in the future, not only in the United Kingdom, but also in places like Ireland, Norway, Germany, and Poland. I have invitations all over the continent, and I won't really be able to follow up on those things unless I move there, which I intend to do in September of this year. If you would like to support that, I have my GoFundMe linked in the description. Let's get on with the interview. Welcome back and welcome to The Angry Astronaut. We are joined by Mel Quinn of Spaceport Cornwall. Thank you so much for being back with us. We've spoken a number of times in the past. Hope everything's going well for you out in Cornwall.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. Lovely to see you. We miss you over here. Definitely.
Well, I'll be there soon. I'm moving, in September. So it's a big thing's coming up. In any event, we'll get right into it. It has come as a surprise to many outside observers, at least the people who are keeping up with you, that Spaceport Cornwall's been making announcements of expansion of services, expansion of buildings, of office space, that sort of thing, in the aftermath of the Virgin Orbit fiasco. That being the case, how did you do that, and were you planning for that eventuality?
We were always planning to expand. We haven't, changed anything from our core business plan, which is developing a space cluster up at the site, obviously using launch as the hook to really drive interest to the spaceport. But, we always set out years ago that we would never be a one operator type of activity. We would be looking to diversify what we're doing on the site. So all our buildings and everything that we've done has been for multi-user and multi-purposes as well. So it's meant that if something happened, like we have seen recently with our friends at Virgin Orbit, that it would mean we haven't had all our eggs in one basket, and we have lots of other activity going on up at site. So the expansion was always in the plans, and we're continuing to deliver against that plan.
Can you give me some details, some examples of how you've been expanding and the kinds of services you'll be offering in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So our spaceport has been funded through many different ways, mainly local authority through Cornwall Council. And the plan has always been to be a commercially generating kind of operation in the future. So becoming self-sustainable, and to really ensure that we're really starting to pick up the commercialization of what we're doing. So for us, that's meant building new facilities. So we built a integration facility, which we used for the first launch. But we've also just opened, just about 10 days ago now, an operations facility, which is more collaboration workspace, a few clean rooms, some smaller labs, hot desking areas for other businesses to come and move into the site as well. So we have that. We have the other launch operators that will be using the facilities in the future. We've been doing a lot of work with outreach, and we've been starting to support other spaceports on their journey towards launch in the future. We've learned a lot. We've developed quite a lot of our own IP, and starting to commercialize that as well. So we have quite a few strings in the bow, just to name a few.
Now, I'm just curious, I don't know if you can answer this question. Who are these other commercial launch providers that you can offer these clean rooms to, that sort of thing?
Well, we've announced, and it's no secret, that we've been working with Sierra Space now for quite a number of years, and we're really going to start to pick up pace on that relationship over the coming months and years as well. And for us, that's really exciting because we're a landing site. We're not going to be a takeoff site for them. They obviously launch vertically, but we want to be a landing site, and the value in that for us is what they're bringing back from space and how we're processing that and what we're doing with that on the ground here at Spaceport Cornwall. So that's really exciting, developing that relationship. We're hoping to announce another one in the next few weeks or month or so, which I'm really excited about. And we've been talking to kind of everybody else that's out there. We are working with a Canadian company called Space Engine Systems, who are kind of in early stages as well. They're locating over to us in the coming weeks. So there's quite a lot going on in the launch world. We'll wait to see what comes out the back of Virgin Orbit as well. Obviously, we're perfectly suitable to launch with Launcher One again in the future. But really our focus is shifting to kind of the wider supply chain and support and satellite manufacturing and design over the next few years, with our focus always on having another launch at a spaceport.
Now, Space Engine Systems, I've done a couple of episodes on them, as you may know. Can you give me any details as to what they're moving over? Which of their aircraft are coming to visit you?
You'll find out very soon.
Okay.
Definitely. But again, we've been speaking to Pradeep and his team over at Space Engine Systems for a few years now. And, it's exciting what they're up to and early stages with them. But that's space, right? You've got to start somewhere. And that's what we're here to enable, is some of these more future programs to having a home and a base where they can grow from and do their R&D from, and testing and eventually launch one day. So that's, it fits perfectly for the kind of long-term future of our spaceport.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Pradeep when I interviewed him a couple of months ago. It was a great experience. What about a horizontal launch provider called Astraeus out of Scotland? Do they have any interest in diversifying where they would launch from, as opposed to the spaceport that they're already planning to work with?
Nothing official that I can talk about. For us, we know them very well, but we also know Prestwick very well, and we're here to support that whole Launch UK program and see where we can enable other spaceports to get their first launch under their belts as well. So we're really just wanting to be supportive and help Prestwick and enabling Astraeus to do what they need to do as well. But we'll see. You never know, and you never know where these companies are going to go. And how they'll expand their operations. And we're here as a licensed spaceport to support anybody that's really interested in horizontal launch from the UK and Europe.
Now, getting back to Virgin Orbit, I know there's very little you can probably tell me about what's currently happening, but they are, of course, up for bid right now in the midst of their reorganizational bankruptcy. They're either going to be sold in a lump sum arrangement, or they're going to be sliced up and sold in portions, in which case the company will essentially no longer exist. Do you have any sort of insight as to the possibilities of somebody seeing the value in them? I guess this may be as much of a statement as it is a question. You know that I've done a video about this. The fact that, Britain here has the opportunity to get their own sovereign launch provider, a launch provider that has made it to orbit, which is something that only SpaceX and Rocket Lab has done as far as new emerging launch providers. So there's only 3 of them that have really done this, and Virgin Orbit is one of them. Have you heard any news at all? And if not, how do you feel about the prospect of Virgin Orbit becoming a sovereign launch provider in Britain?
Yeah, I can't really comment on anything that Britain's doing in general in regards to Virgin Orbit Chapter 11 and seeing what comes out of that process. I'm aware that they've had 30 bids, and I know that was communicated earlier today, or maybe even overnight, which just goes to show that it is, of course, a really great technology and an amazing way, really unique way of getting to space, that I really hope somebody out there recognizes that uniqueness and its role in the future of accessing space. We've always believed in the technology, and obviously the team in Virgin Orbit, and we think what they created over the years is so special. So I do, of course, really hope that something does come along and we see a project come out the back, or a new company take them up, or whatever it might be. I really look forward to seeing the outcome of this whole process, because it's been really difficult for a lot of people, and it's been really sad for the industry, for the people involved. And so I think because of that uniqueness, because of the passion behind it, that I do hope that there's a phoenix at the end of this story, and we see Launcher One do what it needs to do again. And from our perspective at Spaceport Cornwall, we're not involved in any of these conversations. We're here to facilitate a launch in the future if it does happen. We're perfectly placed to do just that. And we'll really look forward to seeing what comes out the back, and really hoping that we do see a Launcher One launch again from Spaceport Cornwall in the future. So fingers crossed, there's some positive news over the coming weeks about all of this, because it's been hard.
Yes, no doubt. Now, another fact that I'm sure you probably can't say a lot about this either, but maybe the history of it, if nothing else. I know that at the beginning of your process, you guys were very interested in trying to get Virgin Galactic over to the UK. That was actually your first target before Virgin Orbit. That being the case, then, do you see, now that Virgin Galactic is about to take flight again at the end of this month, do you see any potential there in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking to Virgin Galactic when Virgin Orbit was part of Virgin Galactic, and they were kind of all one big team. So we got to know them very, very well. We made a decision, and when I say we, I kind of mean the UK in general, that we focus on satellite launch, and we get that right. It's difficult enough to do satellite launch for the first time, as we learned in January. So I think the focus will still be on satellite launch in the UK for the foreseeable future, and getting a cadence up there and really securing that marketplace first. But again, I think you'd be crazy to say that you weren't interested in human spaceflight in the future. And I've mentioned Sierra Space because, Dreamchaser could potentially have humans on it. And I think moving away from the word tourism into human spaceflight and all the benefits that brings to society, from microgravity experiments for cancer research, for instance, that's something that we're really interested in, is how do we use human spaceflight to benefit people and planet back here on Earth. So I guess never say never. There's no conversations happening at the minute. The council down here definitely wanted us to focus on satellite launch, and that if we started to look at human spaceflight in the future, then there's a wider conversation to be had. But obviously we love what's going on with Virgin Galactic, and seeing them getting ready for another launch is huge, because we need to get more of these going around the world, if we're really truly going to become a multiplanetary species.
Now let's get back onto Sierra Space, since this is the biggest name that you guys are dealing with, at least it would seem to me. A very huge organization, multi-billion-dollar company, etc., with very, very positive prospects for them. What does a future mission with Sierra Space look like to you guys? Can you tell me, I don't know how much you guys have gotten into the details, but walk through the process of how Dreamchaser collaborates with Spaceport Cornwall. I mean, they already have landing facilities in the U.S., a couple of them actually. So, how does a landing facility in Britain bring advantage and value to Sierra Space?
Well, we love Sierra Space because we see they really get it. They see how a sustainable business model for operating Dreamchaser will work for the different locations around the world. It's not just about getting one landing and being like, oh, that's great, it's a big PR stunt. No, we want to add value to Sierra Space and vice versa. So it's about creating a mission that makes sense to the UK, that makes sense to Europe or Cornwall, that is, whether that's research or experiments on board, that we are supporting as well. So it's that kind of entire ecosystem of a mission, not just it coming back, landing, and people taking some pictures and it goes away again. Like, we want the whole mission itself, to what's on board it, to how it's being processed when it's landed, and the re-entry of that, and the people working on the grounds and how they're handling those payloads. All that story needs to be in place, and for us, that's for us to kind of come up with as the UK and as Cornwall and as potentially Europe. Like, what does that mission look like? And then that's when we start to talk about, okay, well, when can this be? How does Sierra manage what we want out of that as well? So it's almost like we become a customer, but what we're creating is those jobs and that research entity, and working with academia and other commercial interests as well. So it's creating that package. So it's kind of flipped it on its head a little bit than probably where we were even 5 years ago. And I think that's really exciting for the UK, is to kind of create our own mission out of it. Every year when we go over to Space Symposium, we stop by and see them in Denver. And since last year they've hired something like 1,000 people. Like, it's just incredible how quickly they're picking up pace there, and all the people they're employing, and their future is so exciting. And we're just really, really proud to be part of it, because I think they're really switched on to how this could actually be of value to places rather than just any sort of kind of media opportunity. And that's what we're all about. We want to create that value for the UK.
So, in terms of let's get to the symposium. Both of us were there. I didn't actually get a chance to see you while I was there.
I can't believe we missed each other.
I had to go scurrying down to Texas in order to cover what happened with Starship, which was a huge story. Yes, a mixed result, but nevertheless a huge story. But while you were at the symposium, can you kind of give me some things that were accomplished while you were there? Because you guys were there in force, and not just you, but also Goon Hilly, UK Space Agency, etc. Can you give me some little tidbits of what might have happened there?
Yeah, it was an interesting one, because the previous year it was all about the launch. We had Sir Richard come, and we made the announcement on Amber 1, one of the satellite payloads. So it was really, really different to post-launch and post everything that's happened. So we were there just very much, okay, what's next? What are the conversations that we've been wanting to have with people for years, but we've kind of been so focused on launch. Now's the time to really start to take those relationships forward. And a lot of that, as I'm sure you know, especially in the US, you have to do it in person. It means so much more than just doing it online. And so we had a full week pretty much from the Monday morning to the Friday, back to back, of just reconnecting with people, as well as meeting some new contacts, but really taking some of those embers that we've been creating over the years with other companies, and starting to put some oxygen into that, and start to get that fire going again. So there's some great, and I've kind of hinted at a few upcoming announcements that have been growing over a number of years through Space Symposium, and we really got somewhere this year with a lot of those conversations. Even with companies in the UK, spending time with them quite a bit at the show was really important. I was really fortunate to be invited to this incredible women's breakfast of all the kind of leading women in the space industry from all the primes, but also some of the really strategic kind of new startups. And that was just incredible for me to be sat around that table talking about access to space, talking about getting more girls into STEM, into STEAM, accessibility, and bringing more diversity into the industry. So it was really fruitful. A lot more to come. Lots of great conversations, and I was a bit like, oh gosh, what's it going to be like? I'm just going to be asked constantly about what's going on with Virgin, and of course there was a little bit of that, but a lot of it was like, oh, we're really excited about your future. So it was a really good week.
So it sounds like we may have some announcements coming up based on what you're telling me from that symposium. Then some developments coming soon.
Yeah, definitely. We think you'll see the rest of this year being, you'll start to really see the clear path and vision that we have for what's next here. And of course, like I said before, we'll see what comes in the next few weeks with Virgin Orbit too.
Now, Mel, you've actually, one of the things that you said has led me to ask, maybe my last question here, in regards to women in STEM and all that. My daughter's actually a student at Clemson in engineering, nuclear engineering, actually. But yeah, it is a field that still doesn't include a huge number of women. And really, that even extends to my channel. 97% of my subscribers are male. If speaking from your position, how do we change that? How do we get women of any age engaged in this discipline compared to the way it's been in the past?
I think it's twofold. I think there's definitely a role for women that are in this industry like me to get out. So this morning I was at a school, and it's kind of, I think it's that saying, if you see it, then you can believe it. And so for me, I never had a female come and talk to me about going into engineering or maths or anything like that when I was younger. And I wish I had. So I take it as a responsibility for me to go out to schools and to tell the kids all about these exciting careers of all different kinds in the industry, and talk them through my journey, tell them about what my life is like, what my day to day is like, dropping the kids off at school, but then also going into run a spaceport and how that works, and being a bit honest about that, I think is really important. So I think for me, that one side is getting the women to just go out and tell their story, the good and the bad. And then I think there's a role for men in the industry or part of the industry or interested in the industry to make sure that they are inclusive, and enabling women and calling stuff out when maybe they see something that doesn't sit right. And it happens all the time, whether that's women being kept out of meetings or passed over for a promotion or not getting paid the same. There's things that men could do to be like, oh, hey, maybe, we should have a look at that, or why has that happened? Because still the male voice in the space industry is stronger, and we need our allies that understand the need for more women to come into the industry, to start to maybe stand up a little bit more for women in their colleagues. And I've seen it happen and I've seen it not happen. And so I think that's kind of the twofold answer to that.
All right, I lied. One last question. This will be the last one, though. The UK Space Agency, there's been a lot of reports about how much new funding there has been in UK space, billions of pounds now going into the industry. You're expanding. I mean, do you see that this is just kind of an unstoppable force at this time? Because a lot of people don't see it that way. They say that there's been so many starts and stops in British spaceflight in the past. They've been disappointed so many times that maybe if Labour takes over in the next election, for example, or something, not to say that they have any different opinions about these things, but even just a change in government could, end all of this. Do you see this as just being different than everything that's happened in the past and things are just going to keep pressing forward, or is it still a vulnerable industry?
No, I think we've made so much progress in different areas in the UK, from obviously the satellite manufacturing side and Earth observation, and supporting some of the major NASA projects that are going on. That there's a lot of momentum, and I think the UK government came out with their Size and Health report just before we went to Colorado, and it's all moving in the right direction. Great jobs are being created. There's growth in the industry. That's all still happening. And I think, that would be hard to stop, because people are starting to, investments coming in, and not just government investment, but private investment for kind of the first time, really. Starting to see some of these startups getting properly funded, and investors that maybe haven't looked at space before are starting to get interested in space. And a great example is Space Forge, our friends up in Wales. And then I see the space flight side of it, so the spaceports. They broke ground at Sutherland last week. Saxon Board's going for it. Prestwick's going for it. A lot of them have already secured all their funding and they're now just in the build stage. So I think you'll start to see these spaceports really going for it. I know some of them have, are starting on their licensing as well. And so I think it's a hard thing to stop. And I also think it is, with the geopolitical situations going on around the world, as well as the market demand. I think it's we've got the infrastructure there. We need to carry on with it and treat these spaceports like national pieces of infrastructure. And I know the same narrative is starting to happen in the US, which is these spaceports are assets to the nation. And like any port, an airport, a port, a train station, they need to be supported if we are serious about the commercialization of space and getting a bit of a slice of that pie. So I'm confident that we're so far in progress of these sites now and these programs, and the opportunities there, as well as that kind of geopolitical side to it, that access to space is crucial for our future.
Wonderful. Mel, I really appreciate the time you shared with us today. Thank you so much for all of that. And as you know, I wish you and everybody at Spaceport Cornwall all the best.
Oh, thanks so much for your time as well, and hopefully see you on this side of the pond soon.
Yes, indeed. Take care. So there you have it. Although all of us, I think, wish the very best to Virgin Orbit and certainly hope that good things are coming for that company in the future. As you have heard, there are over 30 bids right now on that company, hopefully from bidders that are interested in keeping the company intact. But regardless, Spaceport Cornwall has a clear plan in place to make the UK successful in spaceflight regardless. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, stay angry about space!